Anyway, the show begins now. Hi. How is everybody doing?
Good.
I have a fever and a very low voice.
Ooh.
Husky. People love
Jen, we like it when you have a sexy low
Joe
voice.
had this voice last week, and I was really into it. I found it very sexy. I find it less sexy on myself.
Yeah.
Jen, try saying something like a femme fatale in a noir 1940s detective show. Like, Justin and I are detectives. You've just burst in.
Yeah.
And you're the sexy broad in a raincoat that's probably going to kill one of us. Say something.
Stick 'em up. I don't know. I don't do improv, you guys. Why do you put me on the spot like this? I'm not a fucking clown.
That was pretty good. Honestly, that was pretty good. If you just,
I mean, like, you're asking her to do a character when she didn't know what the Maltese Falcon was. Like,
That's a
you're
good
asking
point.
her to do
Yeah.
a Dashiell Hammond character when she didn't know the most famous Dashiell Hammond book.
All right, Jen, pretend to light a cigarette and then say, "Can you boys help me solve a murder?"
Can you boys help me solve a murder?
Oh, I'm liking this.
That's pretty good. Yeah,
Jen, I'm
that's
liking
good.
this. You should stay husky. You should take up smoking.
Stay husky.
So it is sexy. Okay, that's good to know.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a character that you used to be able to punch. They used to punch those women in the books and the movies. Like, you couldn't, at a certain point, you had to stop doing it. No matter how mean they got or how much they wanted to kill you, you couldn't punch them in the face. But back then, you could.
Like Demi Moore in G.I. Jane, because she had the low voice. You could punch her.
Well, Demi Moore, I don't know. I mean, she kind of always had a little bit of a husky voice.
Always,
that was
yeah.
that's kind of what made her an ingenue.
Yeah. Her and I think Angie Harmon. She was on Law and Order for a while. I always found her extremely hot. The lesbian side of me, of course, found her very hot.
The straight side can't find her hot? Do you like the straight side is like, ew, gross, women?
The straight side makes me want to be her, which I guess could explain why I'm copying her voice today.
There we go. There we go. Heaton, you're at the
straight
end
part
of
of
the
me wants
Fringe
to solve
Festival.
murders and answer your next question. Straight part of me wants to solve murders, and the gay part maybe wants to commit them. That's nothing against gays.
Oh,
Just saying there's
geez.
two wolves within each guy.
Yeah. A gay murderous wolf and a straight wolf who is committed to truth, justice, in the American way.
And it ends up compensating, and I'm just kind of neutral. Sometimes I accidentally kill somebody, but I don't mean to.
Is the person that gay you wants to murder straight you?
If that were the case, I would have done it by now. No. Gay me's crafty.
Yeah. Speaking of gay iconography, R.I.P. Tim Curry. He that just broke, dead at 80.
Oh. So he's
I thought you were going to
carpooling
say
with
Dolly Parton.
Well, she also died. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think she's more of an icon than Tim Curry because I can't actually tell you who Tim Curry was.
I hate to say, I thought Tim Curry was already deceased. Okay. Am I getting Mandela effect for Rocky Horror Picture Show?
We're giving him quite the memorial.
Well, hold on, wait a minute. Yeah, you don't know Rocky Horror Picture Show, Jen?
Apparently, we have established I know nothing.
He's a sweet transvestite from Transylvania. You didn't know that? Camp Classic?
Where like plants sing.
No, you're thinking of
You
Little Shop of
don't know
Horrors.
Rocky Horror
I am
Picture
thinking
Show?
Little Shop of Horrors.
Which, side note, Jen,
again, not a
at
single
some
clown.
point, you and I need to go to Marie's Crisis in New York because I can sing the shit out of Suddenly Seymour. And it's quite the crowd pleaser in DC if you're ever there. Very different. You should see Little Shop of Horrors and or go to a singing bar with me. But specifically, Rocky Horror Picture Show is almost like it's almost liturgical. It's almost like a church service for people that love a particular film. Like there's very specific things people do. I've done it once. It was fun. Don't know if I'm going to do it again anytime soon, but I'm glad I did it. It's a cultural experience worth doing.
Yeah, I think that's why I've avoided it, to be honest. It seems like a cult of weirdos, and I am down if like other weirdos bring me, but if I'm just going by myself to feel uncomfortable by myself in a group where I don't really understand what's going on and it's not just a show, like I'm not gonna do that.
I'd go with
if you guys
somebody.
want to bring me.
They're gonna start doing it at the Sphere in Las Vegas. That's like they're gonna make a big deal about it, but I think that's going to be a real crowd pleaser because boy, do the theater kids love a Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I'm down for a good sing-along, and I feel like if I was going to go to the Sphere for something like that, I would want to know I'd want to study the songs. So, for me, if they did Grease, I'd be all in.
I don't know what version, because we grew up in the same era. We're nearly the same age, and we were probably watching the same cable channels. And, that's how VH1 would just play the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
See, here's the problem. My parents wouldn't let me have cable as a kid. I didn't have MTV. I didn't have VH1. I was feral outside. So I know all of these things from when we were kids on cable, if it wasn't on the original 13 channels, I didn't see it.
Jen, did you have the thing where they scrambled all the channels and you'd try to watch the porn channel and every 5 to 8 minutes you'd see a nipple and they would go back to being all staticky? Did you have that?
Skinamax, of course, but Skinamax flying boobs.
Yeah.
I still get aroused when stuff wasn't squiggly lines.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't have cable, so that could explain some of it. It could also explain why, on KTLA, I've seen Overboard 100,000 times. The things that I did see, I couldn't get away from.
What is Overboard? How have we had such radically different media experiences?
Yeah, right?
Are you serious? It's a movie with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, and we just watched it again. It holds up. It's so good. It's
Are they
a
on
comedy,
a boat, or is it a ski thing?
So she is a rich bitch, and he is a contractor, and he's she's super rude to him, but then she gets amnesia, and she can't remember who she is, and so he basically picks her up from the police station and turns her into his servant. And then of course they fall in love. It's classic 80s storyline. There's nothing surprising, but the execution is fantastic because it's Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. It's where they met. The sparks are flying the whole time. It's just really good. I love that movie.
I need to call you out on something. When I picked up a lady with amnesia and tricked her into being my servant and eventually developed a sexual relationship with her, you gave me quite the talking to about that. And yet you find this movie funny. What's up?
And yet he was clearly overboarding.
As I was describing the movie, I heard it, but I still don't care. The movie is excellent and I loved it. And it was the 80s. We're not canceling Goldie Hawn. 10 out of 10 recommend Overboard.
Why?
People write in and tell them how good Overboard is.
Stories aren't real. I'm tired of all of this. Every story needs to be an appropriate story. Now, some stories are inappropriate. That's the reason why we tell them. They're ridiculous little parables that are telling that's a class parable, right? A rich bitch treats a lower class person like shit and then finds the roles reversed. We're not doing a story about consent and mental health and concussions and all the things that go along with that. We're specifically talking about class.
Yeah, and it was what was it like for her to go from being this super wealthy lady living on a yacht to raising 3 children with no money. And then, of course, Kurt Russell feels bad about all the deception and all that shit. So
he
that
eventually
has
to pay for his original crime. And there we go. The social order returns.
I don't know. If you know the ending, you know he certainly doesn't pay for anything. But still,
well, no, he has to face his deception. He has created the tension of making her believe a thing that isn't true. And then eventually you find out that Mrs. Doubtfire is Robin Williams.
Yeah.
That's
great film.
That's,
And eventually Goldie gets to make the decision for herself, knowing all the facts.
Yeah.
Always happy ending. But yeah, I've seen it, I don't know, 300 times.
Really? Clue? You ain't seen Clue? You don't know any Tim Curry movies?
Tim Curry,
Did you see Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? Back in the early
I thought you were going to
90s?
say Men of Tights.
That is a parody of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Great film.
I've only seen the one with the tights.
Okay, all right.
Well, they both have tights, but...
Yeah. Just like how I saw Hot Shots before I saw Top Gun. So when I was watching Top Gun the first time, I was laughing the whole time because I was finally understanding the jokes.
Yeah. Did you see It, the original 1980s version?
No, but I did see Spaceballs before I saw Star Wars.
First, Jen,
trying to think if
I'm
Tim
genuinely
Curry
impressed
was in
that you're a parody-forward person. I am. That you're I'm not. Some people are I want to read the book before I see the film. You're I want to see the parody before I see the original.
By the way,
that.
speaking of Spaceballs, you know that they're finally doing Spaceballs 2. They already shot it, and it's going to feature the on-screen return of Rick Moranis. They got Rick Moranis out of retirement to do Dark Helmet in Spaceballs 2.
But how are they going to do
Nice.
it without John Candy?
Look at Chris
It's
Farley to do it.
apparently a lot of humor about reboots and where the commoditization of science fiction is now. And so there's apparently no one's going to replace John Candy, but that will be a kind of running joke, is that sometimes the original actors aren't around from the first movie, and so they need to figure out a way to figure that out. But I think they have Bill Pullman's actual son is going to play the new younger version of Lone Star.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
But I was shocked they got Rick Moranis. It was like, of all the things, Rick Moranis doesn't come back for. They've rebooted Ghostbusters 1,000,000 times. Like they don't bring him back for that. But Spaceballs, he's like, yeah, gotta do it. I gotta be Dark Helmet.
I get it. I mean, Spaceballs is so iconic, and that's one where you don't have 7 sequels. So it's like Ghostbusters. Does Rick Moranis really need to come back for Ghostbusters 16? But for Spaceballs, like, yeah, I see it. I get it.
I got a real question. Rick Moranis, do some people just run out of funny? Like, was there a point where he's like, I don't want to be funny anymore? Like, what happened?
No, something crazy happened to him.
Well, no, he, I think his wife died, and he wound up just saying, like, I need to take care of my kids. Like, he just became like a regular dad. Yeah, he quit acting. Like, people have been trying to get Rick Moranis back in movies forever. I mean,
he's
if
always
you look
been
at
funny.
where all the Second City people or not Second City, SCTV people that, were continued to be huge, Catherine O'Hara and all that gang, especially the Christopher Guest movies, they've always tried to get Rick Moranis to come back and do something, and he just never would do it. He had some situation where he got punched in the back of the head.
Yeah, I
in New York,
read about that.
Right? It was on camera.
He got assaulted in New York. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
But apparently now his kids are grown and they're doing well, and he was like, yeah, if Mel Brooks is still alive, let's do Spaceballs too.
Oh, I welcome it. We need more Rick Moranis in these times.
Yeah, I was like, kind of like, I love Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks is huge. I have a Spaceballs poster on my wall here that you can see. So I love Spaceballs, but I was always kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, it's comedy's iffy. You really, especially when something lives in legend in comedy, it's very hard to do a comedic sequel no matter what. Even when everybody is the same age relatively, it's very hard to reboot something comedically and have it mean as much. But then they got Rick Moranis back, and I'm like, I'm locked in, dude. Like that's worth the price of admission.
I'll see that in the theaters. Hopefully we can see it together. Is it coming out soon?
It got announced at Comic-Con, so you would imagine it will be out before the next Comic-Con.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. I saw The Odyssey last night.
year.
Have you guys seen it?
I did.
Odyssey, them titties. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I accidentally studied up for it because I saw Troy, because Troy was filmed on Malta. So I took the time to watch it so that I could, appreciate where the film sets were. And so it was interesting kind of having that already in my head, like the different way they approached it. Because Troy, it was like a story about humans, where the Odyssey, I wasn't really expecting all of the, mythical creatures that they inserted into it.
Two different. One's the Iliad and one's the Odyssey, right?
Yeah, but it's the same universe. I mean, it's still talking about the war where they destroy Troy. Yeah, it's
Odyssey
kind of like
is the sequel to the Iliad.
But it is the same universe, and yet watching those two movies back to back within a week of each other, it didn't feel like this. So it's just kind of interesting to me how you can kind of tell the same story, and obviously it's not the same story, but it's the before Troy kind of did before and during the war, and then Odyssey did during and after, but it didn't feel like the same planet. But I really enjoyed it. I saw it in the IMAX. IMAX is here. Have you guys been to a theater in the United States where the seats recline and you have a footrest and your own little table? Is this a thing that we do now in the
Yes.
States?
Describing Alamo.
There's the one by my house has that.
Oh, okay. Well, this was my first experience with it, and I really dug it. But yeah, 2 thumbs up. Did you guys like that?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. One of my problems with Greek mythology, which I have many thoughts on, is that a lot of the morality is horrible and the gods are awful and not deserving of respect.
Yeah.
You read any Greek myths, the only good guy is Prometheus. He's a good dude. Prometheus wants us to be happy. He steals fire for us. All of the other gods are petty sociopaths that you would find in reality television, except they have superpowers and they can't die. So I have a problem with that. I thought that Nolan cleaned up some of the stuff that makes it rougher to a modern audience. Like in the original version of the Odyssey, there's the scene, Jen, where Odysseus returns and he's talking to his wife from behind the screen, and the nurse comes up and she's like, "Oh, it's the scar." In the Homeric version, he grabs her by the neck and says, "I'm going to kill everyone tomorrow, and I will kill you if you say anything." And then the following day, he doesn't kill just like the guys. He also hangs all 12 of his slave maids that had been sleeping with the guys, who probably had no say in the matter. They probably just like were required to have sex. So there's like a lot of elements in it that they kind of smoothed over, which I think was good because they were able to maintain this ethos of coming home and exploring new concepts of like civilizational collapse. I thought it was a good film.
Yeah. Maybe you guys can explain some of the drama to me though, because I have seen a lot of things online where they're comparing Brad Pitt and Elliot Page. And then I watched the movie and Elliot Page did not play Achilles.
No.
So what the fuck is that all about? Like, why are they comparing the two?
It was something incredibly stupid and I have no idea where it came from. But for whatever reason, there was this rumor that went around initially that Elliot Page was going to play Achilles. Now, Elliot Page, obviously in the movie, she plays a different character.
And he did a great job.
Save your fucking emails. And I think, for the character that is played, it's phenomenal. And there's a few moments that kind of happen that I think make a lot of sense, especially in a Nolan-esque kind of movie. But it was entirely engagement farming. That and Lupita Nyong'o playing Helen of Troy.
Because God forbid Helen be black. In the Middle East.
Also it's like, weirdly, I think that one actually worked in Nolan's favor, that considering what this version of Helen of Troy does in the movie, that he was able to dodge they made Helen of Troy an angry black woman because there was this other controversy of like, oh no, she's not beautiful enough to be the face that launched 1,000 ships. But it was just dumb. It was nonsense. And it was also, I had a whole thing on PX3 where I was baffled by it because the right doesn't deserve good art. And the reason why the right doesn't deserve good art is because when the most bankable director in Hollywood, who unquestionably makes conservative stories where conservative moral protagonists are desperately trying to hold together a world of chaos. Christopher Nolan does not make movies about subversion. He makes movies about family, sacrifice, and community. That's pretty much it. And when you have a guy who's at the top of his game, who's making like these kinds of movies for these kinds of budgets and telling your kinds of stories, and you're like, oh, the trans woman's going to be Achilles. It's like, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve good art. You want to know what? I hope he makes Barbie 2. I hope the next one he just does go full woke. When you can't give Christopher Nolan the benefit of the doubt, Christopher Nolan, the benefit of the doubt, then you don't deserve good things if you are in the right-wing media ecosystem. It just I don't know. There's no reason why that happened other than to entirely fumble from the right-wing side of the aisle, for them to just be like, oh, we don't want a cultural victory. We would not like to go out and say, everybody go see The Odyssey, a movie about a man who cares about society and his family so much he struggles for 9 years. Granted, 7 of them are banging Charlize Theron, but we're going to fast forward through that. But he really, really tries hard to get back to his family, and then just kind of bangs Charlize Theron on opiates for 7 years. But other than that, he really cares about his family.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to know that was just nonsense.
Yeah,
I was sitting there and being like, this doesn't make any sense.
Can I add a little bit? Because me being a proper nerd, I've thought a lot about canonical accuracy and what a creator owes to canonical accuracy, and I'm here for it. but you need to be consistent with it. So if you're going to get like really bent out of shape on Helen of Troy, for example, and like technically the text says that she's the white-armed Helen, so you could make the case that they were changing something. I don't really feel like it altered the character at all. I don't think it was particularly important. But like Odysseus, who I liked, is not the same Odysseus Homer's writing about. In Homer's epic, Odysseus is a trickster who constantly lies. He's a liar who tricks people all the time. That's not really a big part of he's like a long-suffering PTSD veteran who's trying to puncture. It's kind of a different character. Nobody got worked up about that. Or like Helen's black. The guys there are not 4.5 foot tall Greek dudes. It's there's some creative flexibility that we can do.
Well, they Christianize the story too. This is the other thing that drove me nuts about it, is that like they invent this whole thing of Zeus's law, which is do unto others as they do unto you, which is a Christian idea. It's not a pagan idea. Like this is not a polytheistic concept. It has nothing to do with anything in the original Homeric tale, but it is in there so you can have a through line as to why Odysseus is doing things wrong before and how he eventually pays that back, once he gets back home and kills the new Batman. Who's great, by the way. Robert Pattinson. What a great shithead. He is just a phenomenal shithead.
Yeah, he was very unlikable.
Can someone get these beggars out of here? Great clip. From Austin, Texas, my name is Justin Robert Young. From Barcelona, España,
I'm Jen Briney.
And from Edinburgh, Scotland,
I'm Andrew Heaton.
And we're not wrong. On this edition of the program, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court decision on Donald Trump's mail-in voting executive order. And we're doing another long read. There was a great long read in New York Magazine about how travel sports is destroying American youth and family life as we know it, draining bank accounts and blocking off calendars for an entire generation. All that plus your emails about Natalie Harp and matchmaking. But we begin with the court. The Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to begin implementing parts of its executive order restricting mail-in voting for the 2026 midterms, pausing an injunction protecting 23 states and Washington, D.C. The unsigned majority said the states sued too early because the agencies had not yet implemented the directive, so no injury existed. The order involves citizenship lists, prioritizing prosecutions of officials issuing ballots to ineligible voters, and Postal Service voter list requirements. The 3 Democratic-appointed justices dissented, warning of election disruption. The ruling does not decide whether the executive order is lawful, and a separate nationwide Postal Service injunction does remain in effect. Jen, what's the most important part of this story?
So I think the attempt by the Trump administration is the most important part of the story, because we're still in the can they pull it off or not phase. But what I'm seeing is that under the pretext of solving a fake problem, the Trump administration is attempting to cause chaos in yet another election. And they're also attempting a backdoor way to collect voter information that the courts have said that they can't legally demand from the states. And so let me start with the fact that they are trying to solve a fake problem, which is that non-citizens are voting all over this country in our elections. So I did an episode for Congressional Dish called Save America from Easily Voting. It was about the Save America Act, but in my research for that, I wanted to find out, is this a problem? And so I went to the website that is hosted by the people that are saying this is a big problem, which is the Heritage Foundation. These are the authors of Project 2025. And by going painstakingly, this took me hours, through all of the data that they had, I found that 81 non-citizens have been proven to have voted in the whole country over the course of the last 26 years. Also, when you look at those 81 non-citizens, they were not all over the country. In fact, 30 of our states had 0 non-citizens vote in the last 26 years. 30% of those 81 people were in North Carolina, 17% in Florida, 12% in Illinois. And so when you break that down and look at the number of ballots cast in 26 years, it was about 1.35 billion ballots cast. 81 cast by non-citizens, that rounds to 0.0000007% of ballots cast, which rounds to 0. So this is a fake problem. This isn't something that needs to be taken care of, which when you look in the document, so it's like the post office had to create a rule, which they just did. And if you look at their legal justification for everything, they're like, well, this has to be done. And it's like, no, it does not. So it's like on those grounds alone, it's solving a fake problem. So I see this as an attempt to cause chaos in yet another election. Now, I don't know that this is actually going to do that. I think some of the reporting on this has been extraordinarily sloppy because it is scaring people into believing that the Trump executive order is allowed to go fully into effect. That is not what the Supreme Court said. But the Trump executive order itself, the fact that they're attempting this is problematic because they want the feds to create a citizen list, send it to the states. The deadline for this is only 60 days before an election. So if the list is wrong, so if there's people that are citizens and are eligible to vote that aren't on that, you only have 60 days to figure that out. And we print our ballots and send them out well before Election Day. So 60 days is not nearly enough. You'd also need the Department of Homeland Security to create a whole process for doing that. But the most important part of the executive order is that it would tell the Attorney General, who is now Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former personal lawyer, that they need to prioritize prosecutions of, quote, individuals and public or private entities engaged in or aiding and abetting the printing, production, shipment, or distribution of ballots to individuals who are not eligible to vote in a federal election, unquote. So basically, it's criminalizing being an election poll worker or even a post office worker. And so that, I think, is what would scare people into, in order to protect their own freedom, people would be erring on the side of caution by not giving ballots. And I think that is kind of the goal. And I also think that when you look at the legality of this, I think it is notable also that there are some states where they're on the Trump administration side, and in their documents, they never once argued that the executive order is legal. So we have yet to see that be ruled upon. The reason, as Justin said, is that this executive order hasn't really gone into effect. And so the states that are suing can't actually say that they're harmed. But the minute the post office rule goes into effect, then they're able to sue again. And that happens today. So this isn't quite over yet. But then there's another factor to this that I don't think is being brought up because, yes, I do think they are trying to cause chaos in the elections. We've talked about this before. But when you look at what the post office is attempting to do, well, first of all, they want requirements for all mail-in ballot envelopes, which would be barcodes that have to go on every one of the ballots. So it would go the barcode, which is specific to each voter, on the outbound and inbound ballots. Outbound is kind of common. Inbound is really not that common. And I can tell you right now that like Washington State, which is a state that sends all of their ballots out by mail, they've already said that they can't comply with this because they would have to redesign their envelopes and do it in the next 2 months. That's crazy and it can't be done. So that's why they're going to sue. But if you look at what they're trying to do, the states would need to submit the names, addresses, and barcodes for every voter or their ballot to the U.S. Postal Service, which is a federal agency. Now, meanwhile, the Trump administration has lost 21 cases out of 21 cases in which the Trump administration was demanding state voter rolls from the states. And so I see this as another way for the feds to get some of our personal voter data, especially in the states where all the ballots are mailed, which includes California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Vermont, Washington State, and Washington, D.C. So even though they can't get all the ballots, all the voter information for all the ballots, they can get voter information for all of those states. And that's a lot of blue states. So I think that's another factor here that we're not talking about enough, that this is a runaround to Trump's losses when it comes to getting information about who's voting where and how. So this is to be determined. But overall, when I look at this story, I think it's something worth paying attention to because Donald Trump is a man who has fucked with an election before, and I think he's doing it again. And I don't love that the Supreme Court is kind of kicking this forward because, yeah, we need to stop this before it can cause the chaos that I think it's intended to cause. Because if entire states can't send out their ballots, that's clearly a problem. And if they don't design their ballots according to how the Postal Service set in their rule, then they can't administer their election. And we are 2 months out from this. So,
Heaton?
I'm going to go into the constitutional side of this momentarily. Jen, I believe I predominantly agree with your analysis. There's something that tickles the back of my mind that I get cognitive dissonance from. I want you to help me with it. I had on John Fund on the Political Orphanage back in 2020, before the shenanigans that you allude to of trying to steal the election. But I had John Fund on from National Review talking about the prospects of voter fraud, because that was something that Trump had been ginning up at that time. And I brought up a similar statistic to the one you brought up. I don't remember what it was. But basically, look, there's so vanishingly little evidence of voter fraud. Why are you worried about this? His response to me was that the statistics that we rely on are prosecutions and not necessarily the actual voter fraud that's happening. So what he said was, you're right, there are vanishingly few prosecutions, but we're also not looking for this or dedicating resources to stopping it. And so we don't find very many, but the ones we find are just the ones that we stumble onto, since we're not actively looking for them. I tend to think that it's not a problem, as you point out, but that does niggle the back of my mind. If John were with us, what would you tell him?
That the idea that election officials are not looking for non-citizens who are voting is absolute nonsense. So I just don't agree with his premise. When I went through the Heritage Foundation documents, the reason I went through it so carefully is that they were doing this person was prosecuted, this person was arrested. And so I was actually being really conservative with this. And it's even if a person was arrested, I counted that in 81. So it's they're absolutely looking for it. And even if you doubled the amount of people that they found, it still rounds up to 0. And it rounds up to 0 with a lot of zeros in between the decimal points. So I would just say that his idea is predicated on the assumption that federal election officials are not doing their jobs. And I think that is, quite frankly, horseshit. So,
okay. I would add that empirically, I think we've got a pretty good test case, which is in 2020, there were a number of locations where Trump lost the presidential vote, but Republicans won the congressional or Senate vote. That to me would be evidence that it was an actual vote and not voter fraud, because if I were rigging an election, I think I'd try to get my buddies into the Senate and the House as well. But I'll digress from that for a minute. I find the constitutional side of this fascinating, and I look forward at a nerdy level, not necessarily as a citizen, but just as a guy that likes constitutional law. I look forward to what happens with the Supreme Court on this. So I will attempt to walk everybody through my understanding of the con law argument. Jen has already pointed out the procedural hurdles that have happened, that the Trump administration, she brought up, it tried to do all these things with mail. There were 2 injunctions against them. One of the injunctions remains in effect. The other injunction has been released, and that is what we're talking about right now. So I think the Trump administration's position is, I, Donald Trump, am the head of the executive branch, and I am vested with Article 2 powers to carry out the, what's that phrase? To take care that laws be faithfully executed. And so there are federal laws against illegal immigrants voting or anybody who's not registered to vote voting. I am therefore dutifully ensuring that these federal laws are being exacted. And as the head of the executive branch, even though it is not an Article 2 power to set election law, I am nonetheless in charge of the post office. Therefore, as the head of executing the laws, including voter fraud, and the head of the post office, I am going to use the post office to ensure that American law is fulfilled. I believe that is the good faith argument that the Trump administration is making. What the opponents are saying is that Article 1 powers in the Constitution clearly vest the ability to modify elections in state legislatures or Congress if it changes that. I think it says specifically the time, location, and manner of elections should be determined by the states unless Congress says otherwise, but for choosing location or something to that effect. But there's nothing in Article 2 that has anything to do with election law, which is to say that there's nothing in the Constitution that vests the president with the ability to modify election law. And so detractors are going, this is overstepping your bounds as president by executing Article 2 powers because they don't exist. Article 1 powers are Congress in terms of modifying election law, so this would have to go through Congress. And on top of that, the post office is an Article 1 power of Congress. It was created by Congress, or excuse me, it was created in the Constitution, but it says Congress shall have the ability to create a post office and so on and so forth, but it's an Article 1 power. In statutory law, Congress has clarified that the post office is a independent executive branch, so it's part of the executive branch, but it's independent. And this creates all sorts of wrinkles. If we were to go back to Youngstown, there was a moment a few years ago during the Truman administration where there was a strike going on at a steel mill, and Harry Truman attempted to end the strike on the grounds that it would imperil the Korean War effort. And so he was going to use his powers as commander-in-chief executing a war to come in and break up the strike. And the relevant opinion that came out of it went, nope, you can't do that. You can exercise your powers that have been vested in you as president if they're clearly established in the Constitution. If it's a little bit murkier, we can talk about it. And if Congress doesn't think so and it's not in the Constitution, the chances that you can actually do whatever you're looking to do are very, very, very small. That being said, the Supreme Court has been leaning more into unitary executive interpretations the last few years of basically saying, even though the post office is an independent branch, if the president is the head of the executive branch, he does have the ability to fire people, and he has to have that ability. So he might have recourse to just fire whoever the postmaster general is until they do what he wants. So I don't know how the Supreme Court will actually rule on this. Jen is right in pointing out that people are freaking out beyond what they should be doing because the courts just said that, basically we're going to hear this later, as opposed to saying that the president can do whatever he wants. But I don't really know how this is going to play out in terms of whether they think that the president will be exercising Article 2 powers combined with executive powers over the post office. My read is no. My read is that elections are very clearly the domain of state legislatures and that of Congress, and that this is contravened to both the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, and kind of trying to get around it through technicalities. But I could see the court ruling that way.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why this is the story that it is, honestly. Like, I mean, if we want to go back and talk about an executive order from July, like we can, but it's, the way that this was reported, I think, is part of the reason why we're in this situation to begin with, which is that we have a lack of trust. People don't know where to go to have an honest read on things. And that's the reason why we have a problem with election integrity. That's the reason why you have 30% of Democrats saying that Donald Trump isn't the legitimate president from 2024. It's the reason why you have a higher number of Republicans that say Joe Biden wasn't the duly elected president in 2020. It's why we have persistent election denial throughout the last 25 years, because there is an increasing lack of trust with somebody that says, let's look into this. We've looked into it, and this much is true. This much is not true. So the desire for election reform, I think, is a pertinent one. How we get there and what sides of it we focus on is where we find disagreement. But if you were to do an omnibus of election reforms where everybody got a little bit of what they wanted to do and everybody had to swallow the whole pill, then I think it would be broadly popular, if not for maybe certain fringes of the country. But I'll do my favorite thing and shred the media. The fact that this story was led with the idea of a Trump victory and not understanding what this was, which is like, it actually says, for the reason that Jen brought up, that this is not going to be a 2026 issue. This is probably going to be a 2028 issue, But it's not going to be a 2026 issue. So we're not going to be looking at this in terms of the midterms. We're probably going to be looking at this in terms of 28. And when it comes down to that, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that Heaton's right and that the Supreme Court, which has been pretty consistent about, certain elements of the way that the Constitution is laid out, that they are going to reject that. And so, but instead we get more grist for the mill of, the Supreme Court's corrupt and Donald Trump is an authoritarian and on and on and on. And, that's great for people. I'm excited that they get it. It's thrilling.
Well, I just want to take a second because I think I either misspoke or you misunderstood me because I think that 2026 is absolutely in danger if this is allowed to go forward. One of the reasons that I was focused on...
I don't think it's going to be allowed to go forward.
I hope not. But what if it is?
And I think all of the things that are here, including the fact that the USPS injunction still is in place, plus the fact that there's going to be room for new lawsuits because the Supreme Court did not rule on its legality, means that there's no way this is going to be resolved. There's no way that the Supreme Court, if this runs back to the Supreme Court's not going to make a decision within the next, whatever it is, 60 days
3 months
that we have.
Yeah.
I think the first ballots go out September 5th, which is next week.
That's
crazy.
my point.
So the injunction will be in effect.
The clocks run out, for 26.
Yeah, but I think that is what the Trump administration is kind of hoping for. So that's the thing. I understand that we think that it's going to get struck down. Right now, it hasn't been.
That's not what I'm arguing.
I know you're not arguing that, but I'm just making sure because you said that I said that this was most likely for 2028. That's actually not what I said.
I'm saying that it's stupid to believe that this is for 2026.
But the intention is clear from the Trump administration that they want this for 2026.
Yes,
I think that matters.
They put it out in July. This was something that came out a long time ago.
Came out in March. But yeah, point taken.
March. Sorry, earlier.
Yeah.
This is.
I think it's possible that it's going to fuck with state legislatures or something, Jen, if they want to respond to all of it. But my understanding is that because the other injunction is still standing, the post office cannot do what Trump has done. There's a federal injunction that prohibits them from doing it until it gets resolved. So I could see state legislatures maybe modifying their course of action. But in the meantime, though, am I not correct in thinking that as long as that injunction stands, the presidential meddling with ballots and mail and so forth cannot go into effect?
Here's the problem. If the Postmaster General, who has, I read most of the rule, it's 95 pages, so I didn't read every word of it, but they bend over backwards saying that everything that they're doing is legal. And if the Postmaster General decides to not send a single ballot on behalf of Washington State because they don't have their barcodes the way the post office wants it, if the ballots are not in the mail, does it fucking matter what the law is? With this administration, they just do what they want. And so I think my concern is Andrew, you might be absolutely right. I don't really know about the other injunction right now. I really was only studying this Supreme Court ruling, so you might be right. But when you're dealing with an administration that would hold the ballots back anyway, that's where my concern is. And this is where, as a Congress watcher, this is something where I would hope that my Congress, and this is why I'm really glad that we're talking about this right now because Congress is coming back into session next week. We would need our Congress on top of this in order to, I don't know, make a law or impeach the Postmaster General. I don't fucking know, but what the law isn't being followed by this administration. That's my biggest concern. So if the ballots don't go out, the ballots don't go out. Now, I did find something interesting in the post office rule. So one of the reasons that they're arguing that this is all okie dokie is because they said that the government or the states specifically don't have to use the federal post office in order to send the ballots. So if a state like Washington wanted to send it out the way I read it, it would probably cost more, but they could send it out via UPS or FedEx. So because there's competition in the mailing of the ballots, I think that could be a loophole they could use in 2026. But this is what I'm talking about when it's the stage is being set for chaos. And that's why I would like us to at least be paying attention to this, even though I want to have faith in our American system because this seems so clearly unconstitutional for the reasons that Andrew so clearly laid out. But I've been proven wrong and a little Pollyanna-ish in my faith in our system and our people over the last 10 years. And so, yeah, just the fact that this attempt is in process, I think we need to know the details of it so that we can watch out for these shenanigans.
What were the response? So if there's an injunction that is legally stopping the presidential administration from doing this, and they do it anyway, so they just violate the law, what would the recourse be? Is the idea that people should be on the lookout on the ground floor, just in terms of general surveillance for shenanigans? Is the idea that if Congress came in, there would be sufficient political capital to overrule whatever they were doing, even if they flouted the injunction?
So what I would hope that people would do, I mean, I'm kind of thinking like I've voted in both California and Washington. And so if we
That's
as
illegal,
voters,
Jen. You're only supposed to vote in one state. You're part of the problem.
Yes, my digital nomad ass has voted in a lot of different places. But I do think that because there is that loophole that's in there, which is, okay, fine, we won't send it through USPS, where we already have the ballots printed, at least in Washington, possibly California, if those don't qualify and probably won't for these new rules, they could send them private. And so I feel like that is one thing that we could advocate for in order to stop the chaos from the 2026 election, because all of this middlemaning of the USPS only goes when the ballots go from the states to the voter. When you take your mail-in ballot and you give it back to the post office, they don't have any role in like stopping it on that end. So it's only to send it out. So the states could send out their ballots that way and skip this whole USPS process. That's one thing we could do. But yeah, I think we'd have to be creative, but we only have 2 months, which is why we have to be aware of the danger that exists if the Supreme Court doesn't actually stop the executive order. And it's really the post office rule at this point that needs to be challenged and stopped. And the post office rule came out on August 21st. It goes into effect today. And so now all of those states that were told that they don't have legal standing, they have legal standing now. So the legal process is going to move forward, but we've seen the Supreme Court drag their heels before. So I just think we have to be aware.
I got two quick thoughts. One, I'm not worried. I'll tell you why. And it has nothing to do with refuting anything you've said, Jen. It's just in the articles that I read to prepare for this, most of them were from the anti-Trump camp, and all of them were sandwiched with "Don't panic. Here's my analysis. But of course, we should pack the court," or something like that, right? And it would kind of be at the end, and I was like, "Oh, okay. So if those guys aren't actually worried, then I'm not that worried," because it was the ones that I read. The ire was not on the actual allowing of this to, or suspending the injunction. The ire was on other things, like, we need to focus on Citizen United and stuff. And I went, okay, that means that they're not that worried about it. I'm not that worried about it. One thing I will put in for the Supreme Court, and this is in reference to something that Justin, you said a minute ago, of the Supreme Court's corrupt. I know that you're quoting other people. Something worth pointing out is that the Supreme Court has been mostly split on decisions over the last 2-3 years, where when you see a split decision of 6-3, it's usually not along partisan lines. The majority of decisions are not along partisan lines. They're usually a Democrat and a Republican against some other bloc in there. One of the other problems that we get in terms of court reporting is that a lot of the time, the justices all agree with each other on really important stuff, and they have consensus or very near consensus, but those aren't fun to report on because they don't have a partisan angle to them, and because there's not fun dissenting opinions, so they just kind of never get picked up. Like, I'm late to the game on this. I thought, incorrectly, that the Supreme Court just dumped a bunch of decisions at the end of every term, and that's when we all had to scramble and read them. I was wrong about that. The Supreme Court has them coming out all the time. It's just that it ends up doing the most controversial decisions last. That way they can work on them the longest. And those are the ones that the media reports on, because those are the ones that are fun to look at, and we can go red team, blue team. But the reality is that they're oftentimes in consensus. The split decisions are usually not along partisan lines, which I take as a very good sign that the Supreme Court's functioning. Yeah,
I agree. And like, out of all of the bad actors that I'm like worried about here, the Supreme Court is not. Like, you'll notice I wasn't like, oh, well, this fucking court. Like, they're not the bad guys here. The Trump administration are the bad guys here. And Justin doesn't care. You're so mad about the election stealing.
What do you
like,
want?
You're just. Yeah.
It's just we do the dance. No, they're stealing the election. No, they're stealing the election. I don't know. It's boring. Like,
But does it bother you?
It's
They're
just
actually
not
trying to do it. Like,
well, I mean, like, are we talking about the executive order? Or are we talking about the thing that has the actual news value here? Because we're talking about a thing today, this week, that I think was blown way out of proportion and only has an emotional relevance because of another thing that people apparently didn't get their dander up enough in March when it was issued. But now, because we're in a slower news cycle, we're going to have a rehashing of it. And so, I don't know. I think that the world we live in is fascinating, and I think the world we live in is very complicated, and I love to dive into it, and I think this is an exceptionally stupid side of it. And so I just don't have a lot for it.
I mean, it might not be because it's a slow news cycle. It might be because we're only 10 weeks out from the election, and people are getting nervous
And we
about
have
the
plenty
rules
to talk
changing at the
about.
last minute.
Justin,
But
I am always fucking here to talk about the differences between Article 1 and Article 2 powers. It is goddamn fascinating, and I apologize for nothing.
Yeah,
No,
I enjoyed
yeah.
this conversation. Justin looked like he wanted to
yeah.
die.
Well, I mean, patreon.com/we're not wrong. We're going to talk about super aging. So you can make sure that you die smarter. Everyone's going to die a genius, a brilliant genius, thanks to this segment. But only if you pay.
Yeah.
Step 1 of super aging is paying us money. Step 2 is everything else that we tell you when you listen to the Patreon episode. Patreon.com/we're not wrong. According to New York Magazine, youth sports have shifted from affordable community-driven recreation to year-round travel programs that pressure families to participate or risk their children falling behind. Private equity firms own teams, facilities, tournaments, booking platforms, apparel, and media, extracting fees throughout the system while weakening the public leagues that people had come to know and love. The result, according to this, is widening inequality, family disruption, early specialization, injuries, burnout, and children losing both enjoyment and identities. Although few athletes ever reach Division I or professional competition, parents remain driven by fear, status, and scholarship hopes. Minnesota's nonprofit hockey system and subsidized international models show that accessible community-based programs can develop talent while keeping sports fun, and yet they are more of a rarity in this travel sports obsessed culture. Heaton, is this just tired parents complaining or a real scourge on the youth?
As a huge sports fan and the father of 3 beautiful children, I have very, very strong. You know what? I thought this was a really interesting topic. I think it touches on some really, really interesting things. We've almost got like a proxy war for charter schools versus public schools, or private schools versus public schools, maybe like vouchers or something like that. The idea of affluent people bailing and then the public model losing money as a result of that. So we can play around with that. There's also some fun economic elements we can go over, like collective action problems and positional goods. So I thought it was interesting. I've got a few different angles on this, but the main one that I have when I read this is I think parents need to calm down a little bit. I think this kind of arms race that's going on of my kid has to do the most amazing sports thing ever. Like when you look at the stats, the likelihood that your kid's going to get a scholarship in baseball or hockey or whatever is pretty small. And the likelihood that your kid's going to go from there to a professional sports league is pretty small. So I feel like there's this very intense pressure on parents of, well, we can't send our kid to the regular community baseball team because he'll only play part-time and he'll play with the other shitty kids. We gotta send him to the travel one that has a professional coach and make him do really well. And I don't even want to do this, but I don't want my kid to be the one kid that doesn't go. That's the collective action problem. But I kind of look at it. I'm like, I don't know. It strikes me as a very weird arms race that parents are doing on that. I like the idea of the Minnesota model in that I would not ban a parent from spending money on their kids, nor would I ban a voluntary association from existing. So if Minnesota is able to build up a fun nonprofit model that people just voluntarily opt into, more power to them.
Jen?
So, I have a lot of different thoughts on this. Like, first of all, I come at this as an athlete. So I actually like identify more with the children than I do the parents in this situation because I was the kid that these parents are afraid of creating. Like I was the kid who didn't get to live up to my athletic potential. I started high school at a Division III school, and that's where I started volleyball. I didn't discover it until my freshman year of high school, but I was good at it. My coaches were breeding me to be one of the stars. I was really proud of my progress. And then against my will, my sophomore year, I was put in a different school, a private Catholic school, which was a Division I sports powerhouse. And for a lot of reasons, some of which were in my control, some of which weren't, I didn't get to play there. And so my dreams of getting a scholarship and being a college athlete were really dashed. And when I got to the D1 school, like one of the things that I discovered is that all of the girls that played there started in the 7th grade at club, which club was you pay out of pocket, you go after school, you have tournaments on the weekend, you travel once a year. Like it was exactly what we're talking about. It was travel stuff. I started clubs freshman year and I played all through high school. Like even though I wasn't able to continue playing in school itself, I continued playing club. And like, thank God I did because I got so much out of remaining an athlete. It was a big part of my identity. And even though it wasn't supported at home, it was something that was really beneficial for me. So when I look at the kids being a part of these club things, like there's very real benefits to the kids. And I know this for a fact. However, what was different back when I was playing, like my club, I knew the owner of the club and like no one owned my team and the uniforms, like we could get them, like there was a generic store, but they weren't expensive. Like I wore spandex I got at Target pretty much every day. They just had to be blue. So like I didn't feel like my parents were getting ripped off because I was playing club. Now, my dad is probably listening to this. He might be like, it was so fucking expensive. But when you look at what's happened since I was a kid, these private equity vultures have gotten into the business. And with a lack of antitrust enforcement, we are finding that they are buying the entire sport. So I actually know more than you think I would about cheerleading. I had a lot of friends that were cheerleaders and their kids are now cheerleaders. And the way that I believe it's called Varsity Sports has bought up every single aspect of it. It's an inescapable company and they just keep jacking up the prices all the time. You also saw this in the article where you'll see that one company will own the ice skating rinks, they'll own the teams, they'll own where you have to buy the uniforms. People are no longer making their own uniforms. The travel recommendations, like they will do the room blocks that the parents are forced to put their kids in. Like it's all just become a giant racket. And it just feels very American to me right now because being outside of America, I'm not looking forward to getting home because I feel like I'm getting ripped off all the time. And this is just another example of that where I just feel like we have this antitrust problem. And I think it's really showing itself when it comes to youth sports. And then I think one of the reasons that this is allowed, the reasons that, a 6-year-old needs to have a professional uniform is that we're also continuing to professionalize children. We've already seen it with child actors and they're having negative effects. This article went into how children are not supposed to be treated like professional athletes, that these pressures are extraordinary and they're having mental health problems. Like I've spent time with professional athletes over the last year. It is really intense what they do. And when you look at the schedules of these travel students, like they have to practice 4 days a week after school. Sometimes after school, you're talking about after they have their high school and then they have club and then they have weekend tournaments. When are you supposed to sleep and do homework? Like it's really intense what we're putting these kids through. So not only are they kind of being forced to behave like professional athletes, they have to do it on top of their full-time job of going to school. It's unreasonable expectations and it's breaking some of these kids. And so even though this is supposed to be helping them with college, because even if you don't get a scholarship, it'll help you with your applications. Like just staying in the club volleyball scene, like it definitely helps me get into college, even though I didn't get any money for it. But there's all these different aspects of it. So it's like, well, the sport, like I feel like these financiers are taking advantage of all of the benefits that us kids, because I'm a 44-year-old kid, all the benefits that the kids get, and they get to milk the parents because they don't want to have their kid on a podcast 30 years later saying like, I could have been a better athlete and I could have gotten into school for free and I never got my chance. Like, I think these parents are doing what's right for their kids, and we're allowing corporations to take advantage of them, and we're not paying attention to the obvious antitrust issues here. So, yeah, it's a fascinating read. And when I look at what to do about it, I think the most obvious thing is to start with antitrust enforcement, because while Minnesota has a good idea with these like public rinks and like you could do more on the public side, but that still involves like getting your government involved to fund things. And right now we're $40 trillion in debt. I don't know how likely that is, but if you could break up these companies, so it's like, okay, you get to sell uniforms, or you get to own the facilities, or you get to own the team, but you don't get to own it all. I think that would be a good place to start. It's something that we could advocate for as a society. And I think it would help a lot of people, instead of like telling parents like one by one that they have to solve this problem. Because now it's a systemic thing. It's not something that,
it's a collective action problem, because you don't want to be the one parent who takes the kid out, which
Totally.
I think is a legitimate position. I very much agree with you, Jen, that I think we put way too much pressure on kids and students. Like when I was going into college and I was talking to older people, they generally would tell me, I just had to have good grades. That was kind of the only thing I had to do. I had to get good grades to get into college, and then I had to get good grades to pass college. There was not an idea that you also had to have a robust extracurricular curriculum vitae that was balancing out everything, so that you needed to be active constantly on top of your academic skills. I think we put a lot of pressure on kids. I'm very sympathetic to that position. I do not like monopolies, so you might be able to talk me into antitrust legislation, Jen, but I want to make sure that it would qualify based on my standards. So I don't know that I have a problem with vertical integration. And I don't know that antitrust law would affect vertical integration of owning a rink and uniforms. I could be wrong on this. Does antitrust law preclude vertical integration? I thought it was mostly just monopolies and concentration of market forces.
This is actually a conversation that's happening right now in this Congress. Like, that is still unclear. So,
okay,
I don't know.
Well, then to more familiar territory. Then, monopolies are bad because competition is good, and people need recourse to be able to exit a market. Competition needs to function. So, for that reason, I am in favor of antitrust legislation if there are coercive monopolies that are able to do rent seeking, right? But from where I'm looking at, if kids have local teams that they can play with at their school, that means that there's basically a free option available. And so from where I'm looking, I'm like, that sounds to me like there's functional competition. There's sort of a luxury product that parents want to send their kids to, but there's also a free or very cost-effective product. So that doesn't strike me as a monopoly. Why would it be a monopoly, and why would it need to be subject to antitrust laws?
Because what happens is when you have your best athletes all playing club, and then you have all the poor kids who are not the good athletes in a different thing, it's a barrier to all of the benefits. If you have all the best, you're not competing against the best athletes if they're all playing on the travel team. And so when you're trying to make the high school team against these very same people, it's not fair as an athlete because you weren't getting the same level of practice, same level of competition. Also, you're finding that those free or cheaper options are disappearing. So that was also part of the problem that the article was talking about. You don't have that as widely as we did when we were kids. So, and this isn't just a market thing. We have to talk about this as a society. How do we want to raise our children? So even though you can say technically there's, competition maybe, I think the bigger issue is that you have this strata that happens between the kids with the money and the kids without it. And it has ripple effects. It has college implications. It has scholarship implications. There's just a lot that goes into it. If you can't do the money thing, the reason I wasn't able to play in high school, quite frankly, was money. The people that made the team were giving money to the school. My family wasn't. So it's money and sports. it matters.
Can we put a pin in that, because you're talking about fairness and resource allocation, which are legitimate things, but they're different than antitrust. Like, I just want to make sure that there's actually a monopoly there. Like, is there only one company that's providing these services? And I don't know, are there multiple companies? And it
depends on the sport.
Because I believe in I believe in rule of law fundamentally. I don't want to use antitrust law just to like reshape fields that I don't like. It has to actually be a monopoly for me to support it. So if you can make the case that they are fundamentally different markets, the kids league that's cheap and free versus the private one, then maybe there's room for monopoly legislation. Or if there's only one or two competitors and there's no means to actually go to different travel clubs.
Well, I mean, tell me, like, this was kind of an example brought up in the article. If you live in one community, there's one ice rink and you want your kid to play ice hockey, and they own the rink, they own the parking lot, which they charge you parking, they own the company that sells the uniforms, they own the company that sells the equipment, and you have to use this equipment. Like, when you're required to buy a bunch of things from one company or you can't play, that seems like something that we can legislatively break up, because that way you're owning the whole ecosystem. And I know that there are antitrust implications of that. Now, am I well-versed in all the details of that? No. We might want to Matt Stoller would be a really good person for you to interview on Political Orphanage if you want to go down.
I would love to have him on. I've reached out. I'd love to have him on.
Yeah, because he knows this stuff backwards. He's written about it at least a few times.
I would want to make sure that we're not using antitrust law to we're cramming something that's not actually antitrust law into something that's antitrust, because I for all the reasons we regularly talk about, I don't want to misapply law for a political goal, even if the political goal is laudable.
But what's the point of the law if it's not to shape your society? So it's like, what do you do? Let me turn this back on you, because I know, okay, you don't like antitrust, but what do you do?
I do like antitrust. I do like antitrust, but it has to be a monopoly.
Fine, but there's a bunch of different sports, so it's really hard to talk about it being a monopoly when we don't even know what that we're discussing. But with the problem that we're discussing of parents essentially getting hosed because they want their kids to be able to play sports, and they're getting nickeled and dimed in all these different ways. If we agree that's a societal harm and we want to stop that, what's a solution you would propose?
Well, a couple of things. I don't think nickel and dimes falls under the category of antitrust law. So I wouldn't use that for that. I don't think antitrust law means make corporations be nice. It's a specific legal tool. I know. I'm just clarifying what I'm trying to avoid. If you make the case that it's a monopoly, I will support breaking it up.
I asked you what you would want to do. We've moved on from antitrust.
Yeah.
What would you do about the problem where parents are getting money extracted from them in enormous amounts in order to just have their kids play sports? What do we do? I know what you want to avoid. What do we do?
Yeah, in that instance, I think I would do a cultural shift. I don't know that there's a good mechanism. If we're just saying sports are too expensive and the corporations are making too much money, I don't know that there's a good legal solution for that. You don't have to send your kid to a particular sport. And I don't know what a good recompense for that would be anyway. I don't think either of us want to ban it. But I wouldn't want to ban it. I think parents should be able to spend money on kids. Yeah, I don't know, Jen, that I would have a legal, again, if there's a monopoly, split it up. But if it's the corporations are making money and it's a relatively inelastic phenomenon because parents want to spend the money on the kids, I don't know that there's a good solution there legally. So
here's what I would do. I would do what they do in Europe, because we just saw this with the World Cup, which is that they have an excellent public system. Around here in Spain, they have amazing public gyms. There are kids playing every single day. They're clearly organized. You can sign up. It's 20 or 30 euros for, the season. It's super cheap. But this is something that we can publicly invest in. It would mean that we invest in our government and that we admit that government has a role. And I'm not saying that pointedly at you. It's just as a society, we've decided that our government shouldn't compete with the private sector. In my mind, it absolutely fucking should. Because if you have an option of an excellent public system, then the private one has to offer something more instead of being the only game in town and therefore able to extract that money.
Jen, I would be much more in favor of that solution that you described. I think I am not opposed to spending on social services or public goods. There's oftentimes very good reasons to do that. I am very hesitant to try to outlaw freely made economic transactions between private individuals. So if the solution was we should have more money put into kids' sports, like, yeah, open to that.
High five. Let's be Congress.
Well, that'd be more city council.
I want to say one more thing. Just like you mentioned kids and that we're putting too much pressure on them. I will say that where my parents were the exact opposite of these crazy parents, and like they really like my sports were treated no differently than if I was dicking around on the playground. Like I had to like defend my right to go to practice. So it was the exact opposite. But because I had the opposite of pressure, I am now in my mid-40s playing volleyball constantly, and I still love it. So there's actually a lot of benefit that I've gotten over my life because I was able to play, but I wasn't professionalized as a child. So I'm not like playing a tiny violin that I didn't get to be a professional. Like there's two sides to it. And I actually think in the long run, the fact that I still have this sport as a passion, I'm pretty stoked about.
We're Not Wrong Pod at gmail.com, where you need to go if you want to write in to this show. Fat Aussie Squirrels writes, we have possums, which are kind of like squirrels, if they had let themselves go a lot. Possums are nocturnal, chunky rednecks that move with a graceless thumping across trees and hiss and screech. In comparison, squirrels in America are Barbie, with their ridiculously low body mass index, coiffed tails, and petite claws that effortlessly grip trees. Their meals of choice are capsule-encased acorns, the most stylish of all the planet's seeds. America, don't take these dapper woodland sophisticates for granted.
You know what?
We have
I'm gonna stick up for possums. I'm gonna stick up for. I know. Possums are fucking ugly.
This is why Aussies are fascinated by squirrels. They don't have them there. So this was
squirrels are way better looking because possums
Yeah.
are fucking ugly. Possums are the ugliest goddamn creatures. This is what I'm going to say on their behalf, though. Their body temperature, their resting body temperature is too high for the rabies virus to take hold, so they can't get rabies. That's a nice thing about possums.
And they mind their own business. Although one scared the shit out of my dad. He was in a tree for some reason. I think he was like trimming it. I don't know. I was young. I don't remember the story, but there was a possum up there playing possum, minding its own business, being nice and quiet. And my dad ended up face to face with it. And I'm pretty sure he fell out of the tree. So we have possums here.
We covered why Team Trump exploded over John Ossoff's Natalie Harp jab last week. Swamp Thing writes, I recognize if you didn't spend a lot of time in conservative spaces, you probably will not remember it this way, but sometime after Mitt Romney, conservatives started feeling personally attacked. They were getting it from both Washington and the popular media. If you didn't vote for Obama, you were racist. If a woman didn't vote for Hillary, then she lets her husband think for her. If you didn't fall in line with the liberal revolution, you were just wrong. You were the worst kind of person. And here's the thing, it doesn't matter how you try to explain your thinking. Once you're labeled a bigot, Nazi, white supremacist, the conversation is over. No one's going to hear you. Because why would they listen to somebody like that? People were tired of being the party of Mitt Romney and taking it on the chin. They didn't want to be the bigger man and keep taking the high road because the high road sucks. So when Donald Trump shows up and starts slapping back, they were all in. Call him a misogynist, a racist, a triple secret Russian asset that likes to have hookers piss on him. It doesn't matter. The man's a mud monster. No matter how much muck you throw, it only makes him bigger. And they started out with such ridiculous nonsense, but that by the time that they could make a serious accusation, it was far too easy for his supporters to dismiss.
This is such nonsense. Like in 2008 and 2012, when Mitt Romney ran, the Republicans were the party of George W. Bush. So Romney Republicans, you are no different. If you're a Republican, that's what you were voting for. And the Republicans during the George W. Bush administration, they were kidnapping random people, calling them terrorists, holding them as long as they wanted. They have, and we still have, people forever imprisoned without trial, which Romney supported. In fact, I remember him saying he wanted to double Guantanamo instead of closing it. It's the party of mass surveillance, it was the party of torture, which Romney supported as long as it was branded as enhanced interrogation techniques. It was the party of a war based on lies, and Romney supported the Iraq War. So, I mean, if you want to vote for a monster, go ahead and vote for a monster. But let's not justify it because taking the high road was just so exhausting for you all, because we have 30 years of data showing that you couldn't find the high road on a map.
My read on that particular message was a little bit different. my read was that there were a lot of conservatives that felt that they were demonized and called monsters all the time, and that it pissed them off, and they decided they weren't gonna play ball anymore.
I mean, yeah, at least one liberal thinks so.
Oh, the high road. Come on.
Keep it orderly, writes. Normally, I'd expect Trump to smirk and lean into the idea that his 80-year-old heart pumping the mix of blood pressure medication and blood moving through his veins to power a sex machine. But that's frankly unlikely. I'd be more worried that she's with him all the time because she's playing the role of the aides of Feinstein to finesse and control to keep him on the domestic foreign task for manipulators like Lindsey Graham and donors. I don't know when this was written, but Lindsey Graham is dead. And donors while he was helping Trump avoid issues like tripping on stairs and wandering aimlessly on camera. Somebody needs to direct him off camera before sundown hits and remind him to take his medication at breakfast and dinner. Why not Natalie?
Why not Natalie?
Why not?
Why
This
not?
would be a great autobiography title for her.
She seems to like the role.
Yeah.
Do you see the picture of her chasing him in the golf cart? That was pretty good. It's like sad, but funny.
41 first dates and still searching. FMK writes, hey, Heaton, I don't know how you'll take this, but if every member of the audience played Fuck, Marry, Kill with the WNR host, the only toss-up would be which of the Jays get fucked or killed 100% of the time.
Truer words have never been written.
Likely.
Hey, I'll take it. Thanks, listener.
That is interesting. That
hold
the
on,
one
listener,
unmarried person on the dais would be looked at as the most marriage material.
For sure.
Oh, wait, hold on. I thought I was fucking and you go, oh, no. Oh, I misread this.
No,
I'll
the
take
whole
that too.
audience either wants to fuck or kill Justin and I.
Yeah, because
Leaning
you're
towards
the
kill,
staple.
probably.
You are the staple of marriage. Everybody's like, oh, I'd like to settle down with Heaton. And then
nice.
we're kind of the ancillaries where depending on where you are at any given moment, you either want to fuck or kill me. I assume I probably end up on the kill list for the vast majority, knowing the demographics of our audience. But, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, calling us ancillaries is a funny way of saying assholes. I think that's why it's the two J's.
You know what? I think my new phrase is going to be settle for Heaton. This is the year of settling for Heaton. Let's make it happen.
No, thank you, writes. As somebody who spent many years single and even wondering if I could find the right person, I don't think I would ever go with a matchmaking service, partly because I would hate the idea of having an agent that would overpromise on my qualities, and I would therefore be afraid of under-delivering.
That sounds great. I want that. Like, I feel like half the time I'm like, I don't know why you'd want to talk to me, a washed up old newspaper man or whatever the fucking thing is that I'm doing that week. I want a hype man. A hype man would be great.
Yeah, but this is a real fear. Like, this is one of the reasons why, as I'm thinking about doing video for Congressional Dish, or even these videos, that I don't want to use AI to enhance my appearance, because I don't want people to meet me in real life and be like, you're gnarly looking. And this is kind of the same theory. Like, I feel like if I look like a troll online and then you meet me in person, you're pleasantly surprised. Like, isn't that what you would want on a date, to be pleasantly surprised, as opposed to like, oh, you're a problem that I wasn't expecting?
I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm pretty sure I've got medium dick energy. You've heard of big dick energy? I don't got that. I got medium dick energy. And I find that when a young lady will come over and stay with me, that she's always pleasantly relieved when I take my pants off, because she was expecting so much less. And like, we're all happy. We're all happy.
I think you have bigger dick energy than you give yourself credit for, because you are a born and bred extrovert, and you you naturally have the energy of somebody who's had to meet people that you didn't know that approached you because they knew you. Like you have a degree of fame to you. So like there is an energy that kind of just radiates from meeting a lot of strangers that I think reads as confident. This is your big problem. Your big problem is that through the rest of the world, they think you are the most confident big dick energy guy there is. If there were a room of 11 people, 10 of them would believe that, and the one that didn't is you.
Thank you, Justin. Yes, that you gave me advice like a year ago that I really need to act on it, which is I should just pretend to be what everybody thinks I am.
Because you always have these fucking nonsense month-long challenges of like, I'm going to take a shot of wheatgrass every day, or I'm going to go to sleep 45 minutes earlier, or watch a micro episode of Friends or something before bed. You know, you have nonsense bullshit challenges. The challenge that will change your life is you method acting as what people think you are for a month. You'd be fucking married on a blimp by the time it turned November, and you'd be like, wow, this is interesting.
Deal. All right, I'm on it.
More sparks than an ironworks writes, when I went on my first date with my girlfriend, 3 hours felt too short. I wish it could have gone on longer, and I knew immediately that I'd want to see her again. That really is all the spark is. We're polyamorous. This email, boy, range. And when I have a partner home from a first date, I typically ask if there was a first kiss, which leads me to the sorting question for them. If they were in the room right now, would you want to kiss them? This does a fine job of sorting the wheat from the chaff.
I don't know what it would be like to be polyamorous. It sounds difficult.
I'm kind of surprised I haven't done that yet. That seems like it would have been a year in the Heaton sitcom at some point.
Well, you still have years left.
I'm friends with, I was hanging out with a friend of mine I've known for a while now who's polyamorous, and it's fascinating talking to her. And boy, she's got an interesting romantic life. I was at a comedy show last week, and the performer is polyamorous, and I thought he had a really good insight where he went, the hardest part of being polyamorous is being okay with it. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's what would bug me.
Yeah.
I'm not that jealous, I don't think, but I don't want to share. I don't share food. Why would I share Joe?
I'm kind of thinking maybe I would do better if I if I had like an org chart as opposed to when I could get into the logistics. I like novelty. People like me in small bursts. Like this might be a good solution.
Oh my God, Justin just called you on it. Your perception of how people see you is just wrong.
Thank you.
It's not like, you don't have medium dick energy. You wear fucking cowboy hats for no reason in DC. Only big dicks would do that. You definitely are not someone who's only pleasurable in small bursts. If that was true, I wouldn't go camping with you.
Yeah.
But jokes come from somewhere, and I know that this lack of self-esteem is real.
For real though,
it's not true.
To tap into another thing though, for real, and I think Justin would back me up on this. I think stand-up comedy, for a variety of reasons, fucks you up. And one of the reasons that stand-up comedy fucks you up is you learn really early on in stand-up comedy that your job is to be the guy with Cheetos on him, tripping over a footstool. Like, your job is not to be the cool guy. Your job's not to be because then people won't laugh at you. And so you end up training yourself to be self-deprecating, and then you get the verbal feedback of everybody laughing, so you accomplished your goal, but you train your brain to always refer to yourself as this fuck up, and I like it's a thing.
It is my armchair psychology, but I think stand-up comedians get fucked up because you begin to see in an almost sociopathic way humans as predictable, mechanical parts. Like, they're not always the same audience, and some audiences are different, but the more you do it, the more you realize, oh, this is this kind of audience, and this is this kind of energy, and I need to lean into this, and so maybe I do need to be a little bit more confident, or maybe I do need to be more of a buffoon. Let me pull out this thing where I am showing more of my belly, or I am being more in control, or I am being meaner to the audience, or being nicer to the audience. All of those decisions relate to how the audience, random groups of people, see you. Like immediately, not in any kind of way that they know you, but how they judge you for the way that you look, the way that you move, the way that your energy radiates. And coming to like grips with that is like soul searing. Like, I think it really does change people. And sometimes if you're not ready to make those decisions about yourself, if you're not willing to confront that truth, then you wind up just creating a scaffolding around it that is just figuring out what coins you need to put in what collection of people, which is avoidant of your own honesty toward yourself. And that's where I think a lot of stand-up comedians wind up getting really fucked up, because the person that they are projecting, which is by its rule, likable, fun, likable, pay money to spend time with, is a facade. Like it is a character that you are playing, and it's hard to reconcile that, especially if you're playing a character that is meaningfully different than who you are, and you can't draw a little bit of yourself from it. But yeah, most stand-up comedians are some of the most fucked up people that I've ever met. Ever.
I'll say, like, now that I've been doing it a while, the fucked up ones have receded from my life, and only the like emotionally stable, fairly like coherent comedians have remained at this point. Like I've gone down from having like 20 stand-up friends to about 4 that I regularly talk to, but they're all very stable. When I moved to New York years ago from Washington, D.C., I remember I called one of my stand-up friends back in the day, and I was like, hey, you should move up here. It's a lot of fun. There's, way more clubs, and also, like, at the time, like, allegedly the ratio of women to men is better, so, maybe you'll get a girlfriend. And he paused, and he's like, yeah, I was thinking I need, like, girlfriend jokes in my set. And I was like, no, that's not why I suggested that. I thought maybe you should just, like, get a partner as opposed to create more content.
Now there's that. Yeah. Just Mary writes, I married young, and I'm near certain that being with my wife has given me a better life than if I'd put off marriage to pursue success. When we started dating, I was the stereotypical smart but lazy, mediocre performer at work. But the circumstances of our relationship drove me to be better. That old self is now hardly recognizable. We don't have children. I just turned 40, so if I were to lose my wife in some kind of tragedy, I would find myself in a similar position of trying to figure out what the rest of my life looked like. Okay, I thought about it. She's a pale, big titty goth. Some of the emails, man, this week we had all-star emails. But I will say that there's something to decentering oneself, either through a relationship or through having kids, that I think is undervalued in our society. Through the 60s, a lot of the deconstruction of the society that came before it, which had its own tremendous problems, centered on the idea of personal enjoyment and personal fulfillment and giving yourself more and more time and space to do that. And I do think that there are tremendous benefits to it, but it is inherently a selfish pursuit because you are in your own head being the judge, jury, and executioner for whether or not you are finding this enlightenment. And that can be a torturous process in and of itself. When you decenter and you are now living on some level for other people, then even if you're having a bad day, if they look at you and with, a meaningful look say, thank you, oh my God, you made my day. Now you're not the judge, jury, and executioner for whether or not you are worth it or you have purpose. There is something else that is doing that for you. And I do think that that's part of the argument for like marrying early, is that you don't get too far down the road of the kind of selfish mindset.
Hey, Justin, I think you're onto something there. I think you're right about that. One of the weird paradoxes that we have in modern society is that I think we've worked out that individuals are the best place to make individual decisions. Like, we've worked out that, like, you probably should be in charge of who you marry. You should be in charge of what job you pick. We've worked that out. That's great. Liberalism, a big fan. And at the same time, we don't get meaning from ourselves. We get meaning from a group that is larger than us. Meaning in life tends to come from things that are outside of us that are part of another group. And there's an odd juxtaposition there. But I think you're right. Like Wings Edinburgh, my local restaurant here in town had its 14th anniversary last night, or no, 2 nights ago. And I went to that, and my problems kind of melted away because I was part of this hive that I've been a part of for a long time. And the strength of the group was important to me, and I was very much caught up in it to where it's like, my own problems are not that important. The important thing is that we're all doing okay. Or like when I go to Alva and see my my relatives, they have all sorts of kids. They got too many kids now. I don't know how many kids they have. And it's like, oh, the family's fine. Doesn't matter. I don't necessarily, I'd like to have kids, but if I don't, okay, the family line goes on. And like there's something to that.
Matchmaking Success Story writes, in late 2021, when we were coming out of the COVID lockdowns, I decided I was in a place where I was ready to get serious about looking for a relationship. I was sick of online app dating, so I decided to hire a matchmaking service. I'd remember reading about a service called It's Just Lunch that has franchises in a lot of major cities several years prior, and then I followed up with them. Over the next 22 months, I went on 17 blind first dates set up through the service. There were a handful of second dates, but not much else until July of 2023. Most of the dates were with people who were perfectly nice and normal, but we just didn't find chemistry. There were a few false starts on both sides, where one of us wanted to continue to pursue dating and the other didn't feel like it for whatever reason, physical, emotional, or otherwise. And there was one truly bizarre date. But at least it was an interesting story. A young woman who, in hindsight, I believe might have been sent by the Chinese Communist Party to infiltrate the U.S. banking system. The emails this week. However, in July of 23, I went on a great date. 11 months later, we were engaged and moved in together. And as of May of 2025, we got married. And this May, we welcomed a beautiful daughter into our lives. This matchmaking service cost me about $3,000 for an initiation intake fee and $100 a month while I was using the service.
I love that. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yeah. That's wonderful. And I hope that your marriage is awesome. But I do hope you banged that spy while she was in there. Like, I hope you got to get on that honeypot, friend.
You want to know what? I think about that a lot. Whenever you see those, like, the James O'Keefe videos, like the secretly recorded first date videos where it's like somebody who works at the State Department and they're like, yeah, we fucking hate Trump. We're actively trying to undermine his presidency. Like, whenever you see those videos, I'm always like, anyone in D.C. and anybody's listening to me in D.C., fuck twice before you talk about your job. Like, if you're gonna get busted on a James O'Keefe video, you better make them work for it. You better make them get that Nancy Reagan in your life before you even start talking about what you do between the hours of 9 to 5.
I slept with a honeypot one time, but I didn't find out till later. And she wasn't trying to like get me. She was a honeypot in an unrelated thing. She was great, very good looking.
Off-duty honeypot?
She was an off-duty honeypot. Yeah, she got recruited later.
Who would love this whole sack of shit when you're like doing the DC version of I fucked the stripper because she really liked me.
It wasn't in DC, but I'll digress from any more information on that.
You old rascal, you. I don't feel the spark, scare quotes, around that, right? I think that line is a nice way of saying that somebody's personality may be okay, but they look like a troll. Sadly, I've said it once and I didn't get the vibe. I didn't like the vibe of it. However, about half the dates I go on, the person who shows up doesn't look like their pictures. Pics are 10 years old or pre-kids, et cetera, et cetera. I no longer date somebody if they only have headshots. Not that dating is all physical, but there are lifestyle choices that we wouldn't agree on. Not to mention that I'd like to be physically attracted to my significant other.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something. I mean, like, I think a lot of people probably say, I don't feel a spark euphemistically to be kind, as you note, which is fine. I think that there's probably, I guess what I was bringing up last time is the sort of Disney lightning bolt model, that there's going to be some sort of intense intuitive state. I am more skeptical of that. And I think I place less of an emphasis on it, but having physical attraction, important. I think the threshold should be, would you masturbate about this person while you're at a hotel? And if they're at that level, then they're attractive enough. And that's what you need to worry about from the physical standpoint.
Lord Byron over here.
Would I rub one out? Then yes, you're attractive
Would
enough.
you squirt in a hotel room to this person you just met?
Okay,
Imagine
but
putting
hold on.
that in your vows.
The reason
I'm
I
gonna
bring this
ask-
up,
I'm gonna ask
dating
Darren.
profile.
Darren's getting married. I'm gonna be like, hey, look, I got a pitch for your vows. You don't have to take it. But there's no bad ideas in a brainstorm.
No, but okay, but this is part of what I was talking about last week with optimization, though. Like that guy that we were reading about, he's trying to get the very best person. He's trying to get the hottest person, right? And it's like you don't need to be the hottest. You don't have to do the hottest person you could conceivably be with.
Yeah.
They need to be attractive enough that you have physical chemistry, but it just needs to be that sufficient. What is the bright line for that? Would I masturbate to this person? That's the bright
There
line.
we go.
You're welcome.
I think it's different for guys and girls, though, because when I say I don't feel a spark, like there was someone, and I'm not going to be specific about this, but there was someone that was very cute, and I used to hang out with him quite a bit. And when I said I didn't feel the spark, it was because he was a dum-dum. So even though I definitely found him hot, he was too stupid for me to partner up with. So it can mean a lot of things. And I just think that the spark in general is bullshit. And I think that people chasing that, I think it's more of the Disney princess thing where it's like, oh, love at first sight. Like, please. When I met my husband 3 years before we started dating. But why did we start dating? I liked his arms and we had like one thing in common. And I was like, okay, like I'll hang out with you again. And then we kept hanging out and kept enjoying it. And we're together 20-something years later. There was no fucking spark. Sparky things come, they're like peppered in all the time. And sometimes not at all. And it's just, I don't know, the spark is crap.
Normalized arranged marriages writes, I'm unhappily married for 21 years this September. I fell in love with my future wife in college and married at 25 after she divorced her first husband. We're basically incompatible. After the honeymoon period, we grew further apart over the years. Justin's statements about that it should just be easy hit home because it's never easy for us. Funnily enough, we've both had such a miserable time that we are in favor of arranged marriages. I work in tech and about half of my Indian coworkers have arranged marriages instead of love matches. Similar to Jen's statements about moms matchmaking because they know their kids, most of these marriages work and remain strong until death. The parents arrange them, and in their social contract, the kids have to accede to the union or they're disowned by their families.
This is so sad. Like, why are you still together? Just break up.
I'm guessing a kid, an unmentioned kid would be my guess.
Yeah, but I don't know. Just two happy parents that are separate, I think is better for the kid than seeing an unhappy, dysfunctional marriage at home. I don't know. I guess I'm judging people I don't know, but this kind of breaks my heart. I just hope that your partner doesn't listen to this show and doesn't figure out that you
It
just
sounds
wrote
like
in to
they're
say,
pretty open about it. They're like the
It sounds like they
Lockhorns
worked it
in
out.
like the
Yeah.
old comic. Like they just like shit on each other and they're going to be together forever.
Oh, if I ever found out that Joe was writing in something like this about us, I would be like, okay, we're done. Like,
Yeah,
ugh.
definitely not Joe. Certainly.
I am an anonymous solar engineer. My wife and I have struggled for years.
Oh, so sad.
Heaton, what if Jen and I arranged a marriage for you and you had to do it or else we would disown you?
I would love to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Make it happen. Sounds good. Yeah. You know what? Like, I think this is kind of interesting. Like, I read a book earlier this year. I don't remember which one it was. Probably one of the ones I cited in the last episode. But like, dating is basically from the 1880s. Like that's how recent in modern society dating is. Where we were like, what if we let kids pick? Like, 1880s is where we decided to do that. Prior to that, it was this model that the listener described. Like, it was typically arranged marriages, or the family would be very, very strong in being able to pick it. And if you were to, like, even my grandparents, I think if you were to go back and talk to my grandparents, were they still alive, and been like, what was a spark? I think they would have been like, what? Like, what was the
fuck
what
are you talking about?
Like, and if you went to my great grandparents, they would have viewed it like they were forming like a domestic corporation. Like, what do you like? No, I needed a partner. We have to have division of labor, and we needed to produce farm children to not starve. So we found reasonably compatible people, and we did it. And like, very, very different model.
It's like, I needed upper body strength and childbearing hips, and your great grandmother fit the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there is a different way that, I mean, even like cross like cultures, like, you know, in Japan, people cheating on each other in an exclusive relationship is a lot more understood and like appreciated, because the work culture is far different. Like for salarymen, when you go out with your boss, you do whatever your boss says until the boss is ready to go. And so if the boss wants to get absolutely shit-faced and he wants all of you to get as shit-faced as him, that happens. If you go to a whorehouse, everybody's fucking. And so there's just like a different way of looking at it. And I would guess also in like arranged marriages or situations like that, if people go out and fuck on the side, now you don't want to embarrass anybody, but if that's just happening, it'd probably be just a different emotional thing. Whereas like in our culture, because this is, regardless of whether or not there's a spark, there is this idea of like, I have found my person. I have written love letters to them. I'm going to commit myself entirely to it. So it's like, if you cheat on them, it's like, like this is a gigantic sin because emotionally you have committed more, where there's a little less out of your hands. Finally, Mr. Pussygetter writes in, I was on Match.com in the early 2000s and I found somebody who I was with for 13 years until she passed away. I found my current girlfriend on a dating website called Zooks. We've been together since 2018. I wouldn't pay somebody else to set me up. I just did it myself. Congratulations to Mr. Pussygetter.
Justin, did you have to call the widower Mr. Pussygetter?
Technically,
I gotta keep myself
my
entertained somehow on this show.
I think on this episode, I'm fuck, Justin, or Andrew, of course, is Mary, and Justin, you're kill. That's terrible.
I think I am well used to that role. I don't suspect that in a battle of fuck or kill with Jen Briney with an audience of 90% men, that I would be doing anything but enjoying the bullet hole draining the last of my brain material on the pavement. Killed.
Meanwhile, 90% men,
time.
we're going to do like some Odd Couple shit. I get to be Walter Matthau. You get to be, what's the other guy's name? Was he gay?
John
Oscar?
Lemon?
John Lemon, that's it. Yeah, Lemon, thank you. Yeah.
He was the fussy one, right? And Matthau was the...
Matthau was the cigar
You're the
chomping
fussy one. I'm
the fussy one, really. Yeah, I'm more of the John Lemon.
No, the cigar chomping sports writer. Yeah, that's really your archetype, Pete. No, you got fucking C3PO energy.
Yeah.
We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. On PX3 this week, I incorrectly said Darlene Graham was going to lose. Whoops.
Whoopsie.
And then, we're going to talk Canada trade war stuff with Evan Scrimshaw, Ottawa's own Evan Scrimshaw. So listen to that podcast. Oh, and also there's a new World's Greatest Con Part 2 of Princess Caribou. Great story.
Oh, I know a little bit about that. I'm tuned into that. That's a fun story.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I think we got a good read on it compared to other people.
I loved the Rainmaker one you guys did. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I think we're doing something. Mm-hmm. Jen?
So Congress hasn't worked in a long time, so there's no last week in Congress. Right now, I think the last episode on our feed is about the National Weather Service, which I still think is really important. In fact, there were more reports this week of late weather balloons causing problems in this country. So this episode will explain to you why your weather forecasts are not as accurate as they were 2 years ago. And then I'm working on a summary for July and then the 5 minutes in August that Congress decided to work. But as a part of that, by the time you hear this episode, this will be out. I did read that housing bill that became law, so you can find out the details of that. That was a bitch, and I did it for you.
Is this the housing bill that Warren wrote and then they kind of modified it? That one?
Yeah.
I would like to learn about that. I will check it out.
Awesome.
Listeners, you inspired me through questions to do an episode on the political orphanage. Thank you for that. I think that the DSA is going to be a big deal moving forward, and this week's episode is me looking through their platform to talk about what the DSA wants to do in their words so that we have an idea of what's going on. I do throw in my analysis. I do not agree with the DSA, but I do my utmost best to give you a good faith understanding of what they're saying rather than trying to infer things. So if you'd like to learn about the DSA and what they, in their words, would like to do, that will be on the political orphanage this week.
There we go. That'll wrap it up for us today. For Jen Briney and Andrew Heaton, I'm Justin Robert Young saying, we're not wrong. Travel teams are.
Dog and Pony Show audio.